Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be ranking state flags, all 50 of them, as well as US territory flags on a tier list from S to F, with S being the best and F being the worst, of course. Just a few things to get into before we start. First of all, I'm going to be judging the flags based off of three things. One, how good I think they look in my subjective opinion, how aesthetically good I think they look. Number two, how well they represent the state or territory that they're supposed to represent. Because, like, if they're just generic, then that's not good. And three is how well they hold up to the so called standards of flag design. So, if it has text or a seal on its flag, it's probably going to be a little bit worse in ratings than if it doesn't. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're actually starting with the flag of Alabama, which I'm going to put in A tier. So we're going in alphabetical order, which is why we're starting with Alabama. A for Alabama, of course. No, the reason I'm putting it in A tier is because I think it objectively looks pretty good. I'd say it could use a little bit more detail. I think it really falls flat in representing the state of Alabama. I'm not going to spend time looking up why each state is represented by their flags, but just looking at it, it looks like it could be a generic European flag. It looks like it could represent literally any country. It does hold up well to the rigors of like the professional standards of flag design. It follows all five principles, which you can look up what are the five principles of flag design if you're interested. In terms of Alabama's flag, I can't in my good grace put it in S tier because it just is so generic. However, one flag I can put in S tier is Alaska. A lot of the early flags in alphabetical order are actually pretty good. In my subjective opinion, I think the Alaska flag looks really good. It's kind of weird that it's a flag because it doesn't really scream flag. I think if you saw it and you didn't know it were the flag of Alaska, you would be like, wait, that's a flag? Or you wouldn't even think that it's a flag. But once you do realize that, it looks really good. It represents Alaska well. You've got the North Star and I forget if that's the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper, which represent how Alaska is the northernmost state. The dark sky also represents that. I think it represents Alaska really well. Alaskans seem to like it, as far as I know. So, yeah, it definitely represents Alaska well, and it holds up to the principles of flag design. It's all three of the requirements to get into S tier. Alaska knocks them out of the park. With Arizona, I'm also going to put it in S tier. I think it's even better than the Alaskan flag, just because it subjectively looks better, in my opinion. And it does feel much more like a flag, although that doesn't actually mean anything. It technically doesn't use three colors or fewer, which is one of the five principles of flag design, but I don't think this is what they were intending to rule out when they said use three colors or fewer, so I think this is fine. I'm pretty sure the copper star represents Arizona somehow. Again, I'm not going to look up how all 50 states are supposed to be represented by their flags, but I'm pretty sure this flag sees decently wide use in the state. It and it's also not generic at all whatsoever. Plus, in my subjective opinion, it just looks way better than the Alabamian flag. So this might be a little bit of bias on my end. Maybe it should go in A tier, but I just think that it belongs in S tier. Next up is the flag of Arkansas, which I'm going to put in C tier. Unfortunately for it, it does have text on its flag, which is going to lower the rating, but that only lowers it by one tier generally, is my rule. If I don't think that the text makes it look objectively ugly, which honestly, the text is pretty well placed in the Arkansas flag. In terms of representing the state, I'm pretty sure Arkansas has some sort of diamond, something to do with diamonds is in Arkansas, so the diamond represents the flag pretty well. Actually, I'm going to move it up into B tier because of that. In my subjective opinion, it's decent looking. It's not the most beautiful flag I've ever seen, but it's no abomination like a lot of the seal on blue flags. So I think B tier is perfectly fine for it. California, I'm going to put in A tier. The only thing holding it back from S tier is that it has the text on it. And honestly, the red stripe at the bottom, I'm not a huge fan of. But I do think it aesthetically looks really good. I'm going to keep it below Alabama. I think it's a very well organized flag. Like, it's just well designed. It does technically violate a few rules of flag design, but I'm just going to move it down one tier for that from S tier because I think otherwise this is an S tier flag. Just the fact that it violates some rules of flag design. It also is probably A tier in terms of visuals, but it definitely represents California very well. Californians probably like this flag more than any other state besides Texans, so I definitely think it belongs in A tier. And I told you, the first, I guess, 6 states alphabetically just have really good flags. So we're just going to have a bunch of high tiers at the beginning. But Colorado is, for me, an S tier in terms of its flag. I'm fairly certain Coloradans like the flag, which is definitely an important thing. The C also does a pretty good job at representing this. I'm sure the stripes also do. It's definitely not generic like the Alabamian flag, which I personally just have a gripe against, which is like I think that the C doesn't actually violate the principles of flag design, nor do the 4 colors. It's well designed. I do think it's objectively worse than the Alaskan and Arizonan flags, so I'm gonna put it in C tier, or not C tier, below them. C tier for Colorado. That's what I think about the Coloradan flag. Okay, well, we're on to the ugly flags now. Connecticut, D tier. The only thing saving it from F tier is that the grapes make it like somewhat recognizable. I think they actually do represent Connecticut. Otherwise, it's an abomination visually, and it doesn't conform to any of the rules of flag design, except have meaningful representations, I believe, is one of them. Delaware, D tier as well, for basically the same reasons as Connecticut. I think its flag is better looking than Connecticut, so I'll put it a bit earlier. There's no reason to write the date that it became a state at the bottom of the flag. That's silly. I also don't think their seal is particularly good looking in general. There's nothing saving it from being any higher than D tier, but I don't think it's bad enough to outright call it F tier. Florida, I'm going to put in C tier. It actually doesn't really suffer from the same problem as Alabama, despite its flag looking so similar, because it at least has the state seal on it, which gives it a distinction. But the fact that it is similar to Alabama, even though Florida and Alabama could hypothetically justify having similar flags because they're similar in culture, it's still really weird that they basically just copied the Alabamian flag and added their state seal. And although I think it makes it more distinctive, and I don't think it makes it look better or worse, in my opinion, it definitely no longer follows the principles of flag design. And I also don't really think it represents Florida any better than this one represents Alabama. So maybe I should put it in B tier, but I'm going to leave it in C tier, just based on my personal opinion. Okay, next up, Georgia, which I'm going to put in A tier. There's nothing objectively wrong with the flag, keeping it from S tier. It does have text, which usually brings the flag down by 1 tier, so I guess that's what's keeping it out of S tier. It looks really good. It doesn't really represent Georgia very well. Maybe there's some way that it somehow specifically represents Georgia, but I can't think of anything that this actually has on it that represents any place. So maybe it's used in Georgia, I'm not sure. But for those reasons, I'm keeping it below California and Alabama. I just think it's not as good as California and Alabama. Okay, next up, Hawaii. I'm going to put it in B tier. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with this flag. It's just really weird for it to have the Union Jack. It doesn't really represent Hawaii. Like, I don't understand how anyone could think this flag represents Hawaii. You definitely wouldn't know this were the Hawaiian flag. I mean, to be fair, for most flags, you wouldn't know what place it represents. But, like, the Union Jack is so deceptive, in my opinion. It really drags the flag down. It also just looks extremely ugly. Like, this is why I think the 3 colors or fewer thing is quite a weird flag rule, because this is objectively way more ugly than the Arizonian and Coloradan flags, both of which use 4 colors. And I would also argue it's more ugly than the California, Arkansas, Georgian, and even Floridian flags, as well as the Marylander flag, which we'll get to shortly. Like, just like, this is such an ugly flag. But then again, it does obey all the rules of flag design, technically. Although it's weird for it to have a Union Jack in the corner. It's not so much of an abomination that I warrants it being put in a low tier. And trust me, there are abominations. Plus, it actually represents Hawaii in the fact that once you know that it's the Hawaiian flag, you can tell it's the Hawaiian flag. So all those things put together means I'm going to put it in B tier. Idaho, straight into F tier. There is literally nothing about this flag that would let me know it was the Idahoan flag if I couldn't see that it says Idaho on it. And you might be like, well, doesn't that make it a good thing that it says Idaho on it? But it shouldn't need to say Idaho on it. Like, I should know it's the flag of Idaho because it's the flag of Idaho. But I'm sorry, there's nothing distinctive about this flag. I'm really struggling to think of anything positive to say about the flag, so I'm just going to move on. Illinois, I'm going to put it in D tier. I'm going to put it below the other two flags. I was originally going to put it in F tier, but the more I think about it, D tier just makes more sense. The white background is really saving it from F tier. I think if it had a blue background, it would be F tier, but I can tell it's the flag of Illinois without Illinois being there, even though Illinois is there, which it shouldn't be, just by the fact that it has a white background as opposed to all the other ones, which all have blue backgrounds. So that alone is enough to, I think, save it from F tier, but other than that, it's objectively ugly. I've never seen anyone in Illinois use this flag, nor do I think that anyone should, and it has the word Illinois on it, which is always something to make it worse. Next up, Indiana. I'm going to put this in B tier. I think its design is A tier, and it probably represents Indiana at an A tier level, but it does have text on it, so I feel like I should demote it by 1 tier just for that text. However, I do think it's better than both Arkansas and Hawaii in terms of the quality of the flag. It just looks really nice. I will say it's not the most distinctive flag, and if I didn't know it were the flag of Indiana, I probably wouldn't be able to tell that anything about it represents Indiana. I mean, I'm not from Indiana, so how would I know? But it's just like a decently generic flag. Nowhere near as generic as Alabama, or even as Hawaii, but still pretty generic. Next, we have Iowa, which I think you might be surprised to find I'm putting in C tier. Honestly, it's not that surprising that I'm putting it in C tier. I'm even putting it above the Floridian flag. It looks really nice. It shouldn't say Iowa on it, and it shouldn't have a full sentence on it. Those definitely take it down. But if it didn't have those two things and it just had the eagle with a ribbon, like, this is a very good looking flag. I'm not sure how it represents Iowa specifically, but I don't think it needs to be a good looking flag. I mean, I'm not like trying to justify putting it in A tier. I'm putting it in C tier. And maybe I should even have to justify why I'm not putting it higher, which is that it is kind of ridiculous to have a full sentence on a flag. I believe this isn't even the US state flag with the most words on it, which is really saying something because it has a lot of words on it. And I do think that it does take away from the flag because you have to be up close to actually see it, but you can tell there's words on it without being up close. So, yeah. Next up, Kansas, which I'm going to put in F tier. We're going to get to a lot of F tiers coming up. I don't know why a lot of the states with good flags are just at the beginning of the alphabet. Actually beats me. But Kansas, I'd say probably is a better state flag than Idaho because it at least has the sunflower at the top. I'm going to be honest, for a lot of these seal on blue flags, like, I've seen them before, but the first time I've actually, like, analyzed them at all is going to be live as I'm making this video. The flag of Kansas, without the text, it would be completely generic. It has nothing that distinguishes it from any of the other state flags. It has a seal and text, which obviously means that it doesn't obey the principles of flag design, which I'm starting to just, like, forget about anyway, which I don't think are that important, but I mean, if I weren't already F tier, I would bump it down, but it's also just an eyesore, so I don't think we have to go any further. Kentucky is also F tier. I think it's better than Idaho and Kansas, but it is just another seal on blue flag. I don't really have much more to say about the seal on blue flag. It does have the state flower on the flag, but, like, I'm sorry, but it's just a pretty generic looking flower unless you know what it is. That could also be mistaken for, like, half a dozen other types of plants. And overall, it's very generic, but again, it's still somehow better than Kansas and Idaho. Louisiana is C tier, which actually means that all of the tiers right now have an equal number of things in them. It's definitely the bottom of C tier. I was debating putting it in D tier, but I think that the fact that it's not a seal on blue and it's just another thing that is in a blue background, like, South Carolina later has the same problem where it has a blue background, which wouldn't be a problem except that all the states have blue backgrounds, which makes it somehow uglier just for the fact that it has a blue background. But it's not a seal on blue. For Louisiana, which automatically takes it out of that seal on blue, the fact that it doesn't have a state seal on it, and I don't believe it has the state's name on it, automatically makes it not F tier, and honestly not really even D tier. It's very distinctive for sure. I believe there is blood on the flag, but I think it still looks very nice. I'm not sure how much of a flag it is, which is part of the reason I'm not putting it any higher. But it's definitely a pretty design to put on a blue background. It's just kind of tragic that the blue background has been destroyed by all the other flags that have seals on blue backgrounds, because I think that this flag would easily be B tier if there weren't seals on blue backgrounds, and if it didn't have this text here, it could even be A tier. The only thing bringing it back then would be that it still doesn't seem like it should be on a flag. Um, okay, next up, Maine. So I'm not the one who made this tier list, and this is not. I mean, I guess this is the official flag of Maine, but obviously there's another flag of Maine which I'll put on the screen now, um, which looks way better. But if we're judging this flag of Maine, yeah, F tier. I'm not sure whether it's better or worse than Idaho. Although, come to think of it, Kansas is worse than Idaho for sure. This is definitely better than Kansas. I'm gonna put it below. I'm gonna put it above Idaho. I think it looks pretty nice. But again, I'm literally just judging the state seal based on how good I think it looks. I'm not gonna do a huge spiel for seal on blue flags right anymore because this video has to end sometime. Maryland, S tier. I don't care what you say. It looks amazing. It's I think it's one of the best looking flags, if not the best looking state flag. It also, I believe, is like the crest of a family or something that represents Maryland. So it definitely does represent the state of Maryland. Honestly, better than Colorado, better than Alaska. Not quite better than Arizona, but it's close. So overall, yeah, I think it's a very good flag. It looks very nice in my opinion, and it just provides a great relief from all of the seal on blue stuff that we're going through. Speaking of which, Massachusetts, D tier, bottom of D tier, worse than Illinois. I would not know this for Massachusetts. If this list were not in alphabetical order, I don't know if I would know that this is Massachusetts. The only thing saving it from F tier is that it's not on a blue background, which I'm not like strictly doing a rule where I'm not allowed to put it in F tier if it doesn't have a blue background. But like, there's nothing like extremely ugly about this flag. Like, it's not an extremely ugly flag, and it's distinctive because it's on a white background instead of a blue one, which I can't believe I'm saying that the fact that it's on a white background makes it better, but it just does because almost every other state does blue background. Michigan, and I already know it's going to be F tier just by the fact that I probably had like a 20-second long cut there where I was trying to figure out what flag it was. Definitely F tier, but honestly, probably at the top of F tier, just for the fact that it is a pretty unique design that's not just its seal, but also animals around it, unless that is its seal. I'm not going to look up whether or not that's its seal. Its text is not that abhorrent. I don't need to say much more about it. F tier. New Minnesota flag. There was an old Minnesotan flag, which is on this tier list for some reason, but there's also the new flag of Minnesota, which I'm going to put in B tier. It is painfully generic. It's better than Hawaii, but worse than Arkansas, in my opinion. It is just painfully generic, and it's also particularly ugly. Like, it's just boring to look at, like, somehow more so than Alabama. Honestly, it probably should be around where Alabama is if I'm just judging it visually, and based on how it represents the state, it would even be above Alabama. But the fact that this is a new flag is what is dragging it down for me. I know I shouldn't be taking that into consideration, like, and it would be probably even top of A tier, bottom of S tier, if I weren't taking that into consideration. But the fact that this is a new flag that is just so ugly, in my opinion, and so generic is just an actual problem. And I personally have like feelings towards this flag separate from the way the flag looks that prevent me from putting it in A tier or S tier. And like, it already pains me to put it as high as B tier, but I think it objectively can't be put any lower than B tier. In case you're wondering, this is the shape of Minnesota. This is supposed to be the North Star, I think. Rant over. Mississippi, A tier. Honestly, above Alabama in A tier. And the only thing taking it down is the words, which shouldn't be on the flag. Everything else about it is good. I think the Magnolia design could be a bit simpler. It's a bit complicated. It should probably just be like, I don't know what it should look like, but I think that's a bit too complicated of a design for a flag. But really, that's it. Those are the only things wrong with it that are keeping it out of S tier. So let's move on to Missouri, which I'm going to put in C tier, or maybe B tier. I'm going to put in B tier, actually right next to Minnesota, which we just did. So I personally think this flag looks about, honestly, it looks better than the Minnesotan flag. And also probably represents Missouri better. Obviously, it's a state seal, but it's on the back of the Dutch flag rather than a blue background, which really does make all the difference. It also has a ridiculous number of stars on it, as well as 3 bears, which I think is kind of funny, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So yeah, B tier. Okay, next up, Montana, which is once again F tier. I'd say probably above Maine, but below Kentucky. I'm going to have so much trouble organizing the states that are in F tier by the end of this. F tier is going to be a bit bloated just because there's going to be so many states there. The reason, I just think it has a clean design, which puts it above some of the lower ones. It also has a weird spacing error between the letters, like the N and the T are kind of close to each other, and the T and the A. Like, it's not good looking, but it's better than the bottom 3. Next up, Nebraska, which I already know is F tier based on the fact that I had to look to make sure that flag actually said Nebraska on it, to make sure it was the actual flag of Nebraska, because it is not good. Not good, not good. It is ugly. It is probably worse than everything besides Idaho and Kansas. It is not good. Next up, Nevada, which I'm going to put in F tier as well. But I'm going to put it at the top of F tier because it is distinct. Instead of having its seal in the middle of its flag, it has it on the top left of its flag, which is distinct enough from all of the other flags to warrant it being basically at the top of F tier. The only flag I think is actually better is Michigan. I believe that's Michigan in F tier. Like, Battleborn also, as mentioned by other people, is pretty cool words to have on a flag. Next up, New Hampshire. Where do you think this is going? F tier. It honestly looks pretty good though for F tier. Probably slightly worse than Nevada just because it's less distinctive, but still a pretty good looking seal. Next up, New Jersey. It gets the D tier treatment, a seal not on blue. I just realized 4 of the 5 of these are seal not on blue. Connecticut is probably going to move to the bottom of F tier, or the top of F tier, because it is a seal on blue. So I guess all of D tier is now seal not on blue. And I just added an E tier because I think that I'm going to just put some of the better looking F tier ones or in their own tier, just so that number 1, you can see them all, and number 2, I can actually distinguish between the ones that I think are seal on blue but still look good and the ones that are actually abominations in addition to being seal on blue. New Jersey, in terms of how good it looks, is honestly probably going to be between Illinois and Delaware, but I don't care to talk about it much longer than that because it's still a seal on a blank background. New Mexico is the best in the tier list so far. I'm not sure if it'll stay that way. I'm going to have to actually look at all of the state flags, but it's simple and it represents the state well, and yeah, it's very clean. It looks very nice. It represents the state well. There's not much more to say about it, so not much more will be said. New York, I was going to say F tier, but actually it's E tier. I know for a fact it doesn't represent New Yorkers well because I am a New Yorker. I'm thinking it's probably, honestly looks pretty good compared to a lot of state seals, but that's really all that can be said for it. I'm going to put it below the animals because I think animals holding up a seal is better than humans holding up a seal. Honestly, what was I thinking putting Connecticut in D tier? It's better than Nevada maybe? It's definitely better than all the ones. I think it probably goes there. Come to rethink of it. Okay, next up, North Carolina. I personally really like the flag of North Carolina, which is why I'm going to put it right next to Georgia, which it's objectively very similar to. However, the NC, even though usually having the state's name on the flag would make it worse, I think the only problem with Georgia was that you couldn't really tell it was the flag of Georgia. This fixes that problem, so it's definitely going to be better than Georgia. I'm going to keep it below California because I do think the California flag is more interesting to look at, but not by much. And also, Californians, I think, like this flag, like their flag better than North Carolinians like theirs. I'm actually going to move Montana into the top of F tier, come to think of it. North Dakota is also F tier. Slightly better than Montana, but also F tier. Next up, Ohio. I'm going to put this flag in A tier. I think it's just like weird to not have it be rectangular. I know that technically that does make it more distinct. I do think it, but I think it's weird. I'm not going to hold the fact that it's not rectangular against it, but I'm also not going to boost it up for that. As for the rest of the flag, you can clearly tell it's a U.S. state flag because it definitely screams America. I think it has a secret O, like that circle is supposed to be the letter O, which represents Ohio, but nothing else here represents Ohio. So honestly, maybe top of B tier fits it better rather than bottom of A tier. Oklahoma is top of E tier. It represents its state really well, but otherwise it is still a seal on blue, so I can't feasibly put it higher than E tier. I mean, I could if I wanted to. Look, now it's in S tier. But no, I just honestly don't think it deserves to be higher than that. Oregon, this is just as ugly as Nebraska, but slightly more representative of the state because of the seal actually meaning something. It's a slightly better flag than Nebraska, but I can't believe I'm having to compare them that closely because they're basically the exact same flag. Pennsylvania. So do you want to be E tier or F tier? Pennsylvania. I mean, you look good, so I guess E tier. I'm going to put you right next to the other flag that has animals holding a seal. I think you'll probably look better than that flag, so I'm going to put you above them. Okay, next up, Rhode Island. Honestly, A tier. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm going to put it above Alabama because I think it actually looks good as opposed to the Alabamian flag, which does not. The Alabama flag is above the California flag because I don't really like the red stripe at the bottom of the California flag, but Rhode Island doesn't have that problem. I think it's a very nice flag that also represents Rhode Island pretty well. South Carolina, C tier. Where in C tier? Probably above Louisiana, but below Florida. Again, it has the exact same problem as Louisiana, where honestly it is the exact same problems as Louisiana. It doesn't really look like it should be a flag. It's on a blue background, as are all the flags that just have state seals, which is kind of annoying. Also, this tree is extremely generic, which is why it's in C tier. But yeah, otherwise, why am I still talking about South Carolina's flag? South Dakota is probably the only seal on blue that I'm not going to put in E or F tier. It's going to be in D tier, just because it's a slightly different shade of blue. I guess Oklahoma's is also a slightly different shade of blue. Maybe I should also put that in D tier then. I'll consider it. But it's a slightly different shade of blue, so it doesn't really suffer from the indistinguishable problem as all the other ones that have state seals on blue. The sunning that it's doing around its seal looks pretty good. I genuinely think this is, even if it had the same shade of blue, it would probably be at the top of E tier because it is a pretty good looking seal and the sun thing makes it look well composed. So yeah, bottom of D tier for that. Tennessee, I'm also going to put in C tier. The rightmost bar of the Tennessean flag, which is what brings it down from what would otherwise be probably A tier to C tier, because it's just absolutely so ugly, is cut off in this tier list. I do think it's better than the boring blue flags, but worse than Florida and Iowa. The 3 stars represent 3 different parts of Tennessee, and the blue stripe on the right represents that it is really ugly, so it's not going to go any higher than C tier. Oh boy, Texas. Definitely S tier because obviously everyone loves the Texan flag who lives in Texas. It's definitely the flag of which people who live in that state are the most proud. So it definitely can't go any lower than S tier. The question is, where does it go in S tier? I think it goes above Colorado and Alaska, probably above Maryland, probably above Arizona. Actually, come to think of it, probably below Arizona and Maryland. I'm going to put it here just because it is decently generic. However, the problem with saying it's generic, like obviously it looks like the flag of Chile. I'm going to put that up on the screen so you can see what the Chilean flag looks like. But I don't think it's that generic just because it's such a powerful symbol of Texas that I think it warrants remaining in S tier despite being so generic. Next up is the new flag of Utah. The old flag of Utah wasn't on here, so I don't have to rate it, but it would probably go in E or F tier. The new flag probably goes in A tier. I know Utah has like a bee industry, but it doesn't like scream Utah to me. I also think that the flag is pretty well designed. I'm gonna put it between Mississippi and Rhode Island in terms of where I think it should go on the tier list because it looks pretty good. It does use more than 3 colors, but who cares? And it doesn't have like a seal or anything like that. And it represents Utah decently well. So yeah, Vermont, easy F tier. Like, and this isn't just any F tier. This is like F tier, not just E tier. This is F tier. It is quite ugly. More ugly than Maine. Probably not, but because Vermont is a smaller state, I'm gonna put it below Maine because why does it have a bigger seal on its flag? No, it actually probably belongs above Maine. Why am I debating this? They're literally two identical, ugly flags that don't deserve to be debated like they are being. Virginia, top of E tier, and I'm deciding to move Oklahoma up I don't because I think its blue color is distinct enough that I shouldn't be dragging it down for the fact that it's unblue. Also, it's not a state seal. It's definitely better than South Dakota. It's honestly, Oklahoma is probably the best in D tier, if not belonging in C tier. I don't know what I was thinking when I put it in E tier. It's not a state seal. I thought it was, but it's not. Right. Virginia goes at the top of E tier because it looks pretty distinctive and it's a pretty cool seal, but it's still a seal unblue. So I would feel wrong putting it any higher than E tier. George Washington, just Washington. D tier because it's a seal on a blank color, but of course it's not blue, so that warrants D tier. Where does it go in D tier? Above New Jersey, above Delaware, but below Oklahoma. West Virginia also goes in D tier. And it's going to go way at the bottom. It's not a seal on blue, and that is the only thing going for it, but that is enough to take it out of E and F tier. Wisconsin, on the other hand, is a seal on blue, so it's going to go in E or F tier. And I don't think there's anything extremely important about it, so it's probably going to go in E tier. Probably below the flag of New York, but above Nevada. The final U.S. state to rank is Wyoming, which I'm going to put in B tier, but all the way at the top of B tier. I was debating putting it in A tier and maybe even S tier, but I think the seal really does make it look significantly worse. Not just for the fact that it is ugly, but also the fact that it could be so much better without the seal. And just like thinking about how much better the flag would look without the seal makes me regret the fact that the seal is there just enough to put it in B tier. So that's all the state flags ranked. If that's all you were here for, there you go. But if you want a little bit extra, I'm going to also rank U.S. territories. The flag of American Samoa is going to be C tier, probably below Tennessee, maybe above Tennessee. I'll put it below Tennessee. I think it's pretty generic on the terms of it could probably represent any state or any U.S. territory. It just looks American. And it's not particularly good to look at, but obviously it's nothing important like the D, E, and F tier ones. So, yeah, there's that to go on, I guess. Next up, Guam, which I think also goes in C tier, but like at the very bottom. It's very similar to Oklahoma in ratings, so like don't be deceived by the fact that they're in different tiers. They're very similar in how good I think they are as flags. I'm just gonna put Guam up first of all because it's a territory, so I think it gets away with it. Also because it has the red top and bottom of the flag, which makes it a bit more distinct. And also the fact that it doesn't have that, although it has the name of the territory on it, it's smaller, which honestly makes it slightly better than Oklahoma's flag, but they're very close. I guarantee you've never seen this flag before. Like, comment even below if you have, but I guarantee you haven't. This is the flag of the Northern Mariana Islands. It's in B tier because it looks decent, but it does not represent them at all. It is just so generic. And it also doesn't look amazing. Like, it looks okay, but it's not like the best looking flag I've ever seen. As to where it goes, probably above Minnesota, just because it actually looks better than the Minnesotan flag by a decent amount. But it's more generic than the Minnesotan flag, so probably right here. Puerto Rico, I'm going to put in an S tier right next to Texas because I think it has the exact same strengths and weaknesses as the Texan flag. I'm going to keep it a little bit below because I don't think it's as important to Puerto Ricans as the Texan flag is to Texans, but they're around the same level of everything else. U.S. Virgin Islands is going to go right next to Iowa in C tier, slightly below, but it has basically all the same benefits and downsides as the Iowan flag. You shouldn't have to put VI to represent Virgin Islands, but I think it's fine to do so. And I think that like the flag itself looks decent, not as great as it could look, but decent. It's actually quite similar to Iowa and my thoughts about it, which is why I'm putting it next to Iowa. Next up is the DC flag, which I put at the end because Washington, D.C. comes after Virgin Islands in alphabetical order. And I'm going to put this in S tier. I'm honestly going to put it at the top of S tier. I think it's the best flag that we've looked at today. The only reason it's above New Mexico's is I think it's slightly more interesting to look at. Honestly, it's probably below New Mexico. I hate to say, oh my god, the last flag is the best one, and then take that away from you, but it's probably slightly worse than New Mexico just because New Mexico represents its state, whereas, actually, no, screw it. This is the best one. This represents Washington, like George Washington. This is just objectively an amazing looking flag. And it has more visual interest throughout the whole flag instead of just in the middle, which is why I think it's slightly better than New Mexico. But overall, it's just also an amazing flag. And any flag in S tier, I would say, is an amazing, even in A tier, I would say is a really good flag. The B tier ones and the C tier ones, I would say, are okay flags, and D and F are garbage. For some reason, the tier list I'm using also has the old flag of Minnesota, which I'm just going to stick right at the bottom because it's ugly. It does have a different shade of blue, but I don't really care because it's ugly and it's not even the flag of Minnesota anymore. So why are we even talking about it? Except that I'm actually going to put it at the top of S tier because compared to this flag, I'd rather have this flag back. No, it's the worst flag. It really is. But anyways, leave a comment if you disagree with any of my opinions or if you agree with all of them. Let me know in the comments. Are there any territories that I missed out on that I should have ranked? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see me rank the Canadian provinces in the future, also let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out when I upload new videos. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.